So in today's web dev tip, we're going to carry on with our Rick and Roll end-to-end project, and we're just going to quickly get a header set up for the web design that we started on yesterday. So all we really did yesterday is set up the background image for our hero section. And if we take a look at the design that we're kind of using as a bit of a basis, what we want to do next is to work on this kind of header section up here, just to put in a kind of logo or just some text to explain what the app is, and then also some links which might link off to other places. I'm not really sure what's going on with this contact section here. I think that might have been intended to be all on one line, but that's probably what we'll do with our header, because we're only having a few links just to a couple of sections that we'll be adding into the site a bit later on. So I guess one thing we want to do is to add a font to get us started for our typography on the page. So the first thing we're going to do is get a font installed, and we're just going to use Google Fonts for that, because that'll give us a nice selection of fonts, although you can load in your own font if you wish. So let's get set up with that, and then we'll crack on and finish off the header in this quick tutorial today. So over on the Google Fonts website, you've got a selection of fonts to choose from, but I've had a quick look through, and I think what would be best for our design and what fits the design that we've downloaded from our sketch resource is this Roboto font. So we're going to select that. So I'm pretty sure you've used a Google Fonts before, but if you haven't, the way it works is you just come over to a style that you like, and then just from the right hand side here we can just select any styles that we want, because there's different weights of these fonts as well. So we're probably going to want something along this regular style, but we might want something a bit bolder for some of the standout text as well. So maybe we'll go for the bold one as well. Okay, and then what you get on the right hand side here is just a bit of code. You can do it in several different ways. You can either get a link tag that you can then just drop into your index page, or you can use a CSS import as well. I'm going to go for the link tag just so you can see in the head of the HTML of our page that we're working on. So with that copied, we just go over to our index page, and let's pop it just before the head tag closes. That's that code there, just to straighten up all of the code in our editor, and save that. And of course, we've got no text on the page at the moment, so we won't see anything, but we do actually need to tell the style sheet that we're actually using this font family as well. So I'm not really sure at this point if we're going to use a different font for any of the other sections, but what we can do if we're going to use this as a global font is in our style sheet, just close these up, we can just say for our body tag, I want you to use the Roboto font, and if that's not available, we'll just use any generic sans serif font that the browser can find. It should be available because we're loading it into our HTML document, but if there's ever any problems with that, then we'll default to a standard font. Okay, so the font's in there, and we should hopefully see that in just a second. We're going to create the header now, and it's actually going to be inside of the hero section that we created yesterday. So we want to open that tag now, and I'm going to use a header tag. It's the most semantically correct tag for the top menu that we're using here now. And just to get us started and check our fonts loaded, what we'll do in here is we'll just say, we'll put a span in here for the title or logo, and we'll just put rickandroll.me in there for the moment. And if we go over to our browser and look at the page again, that's the production site there. We haven't pushed anything from yesterday there, so have a look at the local site. You might just be able to see on the page there that we've got rickandroll.me, although it is in black and very small. So we need to sort that out. But first things, what we'll do is in the header, we want to kind of push that into the page a little bit. And also we want to align it so that the other items that we're going to be putting in later on are further down. So we're going to do that by creating a flexbox within inside of the header, and that will allow us to position items both on the X and Y axis. So let's go into our styles.scss, and because we've got a very specific selector here for the section hero, we can just directly select the header element inside of here and not worry too much about it applying to other header elements if we use them in other parts of our site. But if you are worried about that, you can put a specific class in there. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is set the display as flex, so that will enable a flex box for the header. And then also we want to put some padding in there as well. So we're going to use relative ems. That's my preferred unit of choice, although you can use pixels or ems if you wish. So I'm going to say it's going to be 2 relative ems worth of padding all the way around. And the way relative M's work is, if you haven't used them before or not sure what they do, is they take the root font size as one of the relative units. So, for example, this is going to be 2 value units of the root font size, which we haven't actually set in here. And we can do that now just if we want to be, I think it defaults to something like 12 or 14 anyway, but we could say the font size of the whole document is 14 pixels. And what that will do is just use that root font size of 14 pixels and then double it here. Okay, so inside of our header, we're going to have a few elements. So I am going to nest this in here with a class of, we'll just call it logo. And we want to increase the font size of that. We want it quite big, but not massively big. Let's go 2 rems and see what that looks like in the browser. And we don't need the ampersand there actually thinking about it, because we're going to have the class applied to an element inside of the header. You only really need the ampersand when you're concatenating or adding something onto the element that you're nesting in. So with that logo class created, again, this will only work inside of the very specific selector that we've got here of section hero and then header. So let's say the logo there should apply that to that span. Okay, so we have a look at that. You can see we've got some text which is a bit bigger. We might want to add some more padding on there because I think it's not quite adding as much as I would like. So let's just change that to 4 on the top and bottom, and then we'll say 8 on the left and right as well, just to really move that contents of the header into the page a little bit. And one other thing as well, we want to set the color of the text to white, and we can just do it like that. But what we might want to do is set up some variables as well that we can reuse throughout of the rest of the style sheet. So we'll just do one now there for white. And you might think, well, there's not really much point doing that here. But if you're using a singular color across your style sheet and you do decide to change it slightly, for example, we could make this more of an off-white or even change it to a completely different color, then we only need to change it in one place. So we'll set it as a white color. And then we can just reuse that variable down here instead of using the direct white color. Okay, so let's go back and have a look. And now we've got our rickandroll.me white text appearing. We can now look at the other elements on the page here, so the other links that we're going to be working on. And I'll just zoom in on the browser for the moment. Probably the right size for the screen I'm on, but just so you guys can see it a bit better on the video. So let's go and add in the other elements here too. So we want to have the sort of menu items on the right hand side. So we could put that in as an unordered list. That'd probably be the most sensible element to use. And let's create a few different things. I'm not sure what we're going to end up with here, but we'll have a link back to the home page. Maybe we'll have a link to about what the whole project is about. And then also we'll have some instructions. Because if we remember, one of our user stories was to provide some instructions on how to use it and then how to access the statistics that we're going to set up later on as well. So we've got home, about, instructions, and then finally we'll just say we'll have a contribute link, and that'll just link us off to our GitHub page for this project in case in the future anyone wants to make some suggestions or improvements. Okay, so if we save that, you're going to find that the content that it creates is not quite what we're actually after. So we've got this unordered list. The text color is wrong. Text size is probably wrong as well, and obviously we want to have it across the page rather than in a vertical list. So we can sort all that with our CSS stylings here. So let's get rid of this logo class here. So again, inside of this very specific header tag, let's first of all take the list style type to be none. And that just removes the bullet points for us. Let's also set the color to white again. And there are various different ways that we can get the elements to be in a horizontal fashion rather than vertical. But what I'm going to do is do a flex box again, because that automatically puts it into a row rather than stacking as they currently are. So the other thing as well is for each of the list items, we just want to put a bit of margin around those as well. So we'll say margin left. Let's just say 1 rem per moment and see how that looks on the page. So now we've got our menu items here set up. One thing we want to do is just push these to the other side of the page rather than having them bunched up with the logo section. So we just do that with another rule, and we say justify content. And there are different options. You can either have it all to start at the flexbox or at the end of the flexbox. So this is basically the logo and the unordered list. But if we say space between, it'll put space between them and move them as far as possible to the left and right as they can go. So that should have the effect of moving the menu items over to the right. And also another thing, it might not be too obvious on this one, I think it's okay the way it's come out, but if your vertical alignment's off, so for example if we wanted the menu items to be exactly in the center of the text of the logo, then there's another rule we can add in there, which is align items, and then we can say center. And as I said, I don't think it'll make too much difference to what we've got at the moment. But if you do find that's off a little bit, then aligning the items to center will just ensure the two items are lining up nicely. So two things I think I'm just going to change before we wrap up. I'm going to add a bit more margin between each of those. And I'm also going to, let's do it in the list item here, boost the font size to, let's say 2.5 rems. That might just give us enough space. Oh no, that's way too big. That's way too big. What do we have for the logo? The logo was 2 rems. Okay, so we want it smaller than the logo. Let's just say 1.25. Okay, so they're slightly bigger now. And if I zoom out again to the standard zoom of the browser, that looks okay on the screen for me now. And there's a bit more space between each of the links. Of course, they're not actually links at the moment. We've just created list items. When we come to actually link them up, we'll change these to anchor tags. But for the moment, we'll just leave it as it is. So in this tutorial, we looked at how to get a header set up. We included a Google font as well. And then we just looked at some basic layout CSS rules to make sure that we've got our logo and menu items appearing in the correct place as per the design. So in the next lesson, we'll look at creating the rest of the hero section, which will be the button and the strapline for actually what you're supposed to be doing on the site as well. But that's it for this tutorial. Make sure you stay tuned for more web dev tips.